If you're in the market for a premium luxury electric sedan that can go the farthest on a single charge, look no further than the Lucid Air. When this car company first showed up in America nearly 5 years ago, they essentially beat Tesla at their own range game with the Air sedan because this vehicle could travel well over 500 miles on a full charge. Now, of course, over the years, this segment continues to evolve with other models constantly upping the bar. So for 2026, Lucid is responding with some of their own changes for the Air sedan. And as you can see this week, we are testing out the Air Touring, which is basically one notch above the base Pure trim. It offers up to 430 miles of all-electric range, and from its dual electric motors, up to 620 horsepower. So the big question I want to answer for those of you who are in the market for a premium all-electric sedan for longer road trips that you can do in style and comfort, has Lucid made enough changes to keep the Air sedan competitive? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the styling updates that Lucid has made for 2026, let me first start off by popping the hood and reminding you guys just how massive the front trunk storage space, which for the sedan segment in the EV world, this is still the biggest front trunk that you're going to find. Now, as you can see underneath the hood, which is power operated via a button, or you can also open it up from your smartphone, Lucid says you get around 10 cubic feet of storage space in this front trunk storage area. And as you can see, it's a really big opening already, but if you lift this up, there's actually an even deeper storage well underneath this floor, which is kind of crazy to think because this trunk is bigger than a lot of vehicles which have a smaller rear trunk. And then of course, we'll talk about the rear trunk later. This vehicle in total offers up to 32 cubic feet of storage space. So there's plenty of practicality, even though this is not an SUV. But since we're underneath here, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain specs. Now, Lucid offers a plethora of different power figures to choose from. The base Pure offers just under 450 horsepower. This model, however, is the up one notch above that. The Touring, which offers dual electric motors, front and rear. Lucid says you get a total of 620 horsepower and 885 pound-feet of torque. Keep in mind, the Grand Touring above this has over 800 horsepower, and then there's also the Sapphire version of the Air, which offers over 1,200 horsepower. So it's kind of crazy to think that Lucid offers a vehicle that can literally triple its power just by going down the trim line structure. Now, it all goes out through, of course, electronic all-wheel drive. And the electric motors pull their power from a 92 kilowatt hour battery pack. So this is the only model in the Air family that has that size battery. The base Pure has an 88 kilowatt hour. The upper trims will have a 113 kilowatt hour battery pack. Now, I mentioned earlier up to 430 miles of range. However, my test car has an optional 20-inch wheel, which lowers the range to 396, which is still very good. It's also nearly 20 more miles of range that you're going to get in the Tesla Model S, the latest version, of course. Lucid claims this is good for 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds, while hitting a top speed of around 140 miles an hour. And as this car sits, because it has a slightly smaller battery pack, it weighs in at just over 5,000 pounds, around 200 pounds lighter versus the Grand Touring model that I tested around 2.5 years ago. But let's go ahead and close up the hood here, which, as you can see, it has a soft close feature, so you just have to kind of basically latch the hood and it'll close itself down automatically. As you can see, my test car is painted in a new color. It's called Fathom Blue Pearl, which is interesting because it's blue, but to me, when I see it, it looks more like a gray color. In fact, this color is new this year, and it also really looks good along the lines of the vehicle. It's kind of like a grayish blue, which I think really shows off the proportions of this car. This is still the most aerodynamic vehicle you're going to find in this segment. You can see it has some functional vents over here, all for aerodynamics. My test car has a stealth appearance package for $1,750 more, which essentially blacks out all the chrome here. With black chrome, you have the Lucid badge here, which is illuminated. And of course, it has those trendy illuminated light bars. It's got these MLA micro lens array style full LED headlights with an LED turn signal, some functional aerodynamics there. And you also have some actual vents over here with some active grille shutters, integrated parking sensors. Their Dream Drive Pro, which my test car has for an extra $7,000, gives you hands-free driving capabilities, along with that front camera and radar system. There's a total of 32 sensors around this vehicle, which helps it, again, give you that hands-free driving control. Now, as you can see, moving around the side profile, this is a mid-size electric luxury sedan coming in at around 196 inches long in the overall length with a 116.5-inch wheelbase. This is a little bit shorter than the latest Tesla Model S, but it's about the same size as like a BMW i5 or Mercedes-Benz EQE. You can see my test car for an extra $1,800, has the 20-inch Aero Light Stealth wheels, which, as you can see, have aerodynamic blades on them. But keep in mind the 19-inch wheels, which are the base wheels, will increase the range to over 430 miles. You have, as you can see as well, a Michelin Pilot Sport EV tire, a 245 by 40 R20, and then it's a slightly fatter 265 in the rear. You have an adaptive suspension, but not air suspension with this vehicle. And you can see the metallic fleck that you get in the Fathom Blue certainly looks good in the sunshine. This is the charge port door for the vehicle, which is a power opening door, although I can't get it to open right now. But if I go into the display over here, we can go ahead and open it by clicking on that. You can see once that opens up, this vehicle still has the CCS combo and J1772, but Lucid does include a new NACS adapter for $250 this year that'll allow you to basically go to Tesla superchargers. This vehicle can accept up to 250 kilowatts. Lucid says you can go from 10 to 90% in roughly 35 minutes, which is pretty standard for charging. Not as fast as some of the other vehicles, but keep in mind this smaller battery pack does charge a little bit slower versus the bigger battery pack that you find on the Grand Touring and Sapphire models. You can see the Stealth Appearance package gives you blacked out mirrors. Those are power folding. It's got cameras and integrated turn signals, of course. My test car is also missing the glass roof option, which I really would have liked to see. It's an extra $4,000. You can also get it with like a chrome detail for the roof along with the Stealth Appearance package. There's a camera here that's part of the 32 sensors around the vehicle. It's got those pop-out door handles. The Stealth Appearance package also blacks out the chrome down there, which looks really nice. And this right here is probably the most controversial angle of the Air, and that's because some people have compared it to like a Buick or maybe even a Lincoln back here. I also don't love how there's this massive cut line here, which is a pretty big gap. There's also some panel pieces, as you can see, that don't fit very well, so there's a little bit of build quality issues. But remember, Lucid is a new car company, and they're still kind of working out the kinks, although they've had 5 years. I would expect the gap lines there, the gaps to be slightly tighter. Now looking at the rear, you can see this vehicle is one of the most aerodynamic vehicles on sale with a 0.197 coefficient of drag. It's got a built-in spoiler, rear deck lid spoiler at the back that helps with flowing the air. The taillights you can see are a full LED with sequential turn signals. They also produce kind of like a three-dimensional effect. It's also got that trendy LED light bar with the Lucid badging. The Air badge here is really nice. I like the cursive script here, and it also shows you the trim for touring. Of course, the Grand Touring that I had 2.5 years ago had, you know, a Grand in front of that. You can see the rear bumper is pretty tame. It's got the rear reverse light back there with some integrated reflectors, of course. And then you also have your third brake light up here. The trunk capacity, as you can see, push this button that actually opens up the trunk. And as you can see, once you unlock it and activate the power opening trunk, that's the reason for the massive cut lines, is it gives you a huge opening. Still one of the biggest openings for any sedan that I've seen, even though this is not a hatchback, which I really think it should have been a hatchback. The opening itself is very wide, just not very tall. But Lucid says you get around 22 cubic feet of storage space back here. You can see when you open up the trunk, the tailgate lights switch to these little, or the tail lights switch to those, you know, LED markers down there for pedestrian safety. There's some side storage over here to the side, in addition to a little more storage underneath here, which is really cool, along with having a 12-volt power outlet. You can also fold the seats down back here, which is a really nice touch. Along with it also has a pass-through. And then if you lift this up, you can see there's even more underfloor storage over here, which is very impressive. You're gonna find the NACS to CCS1 adapter over here. And in general, even though this is a sedan, you know, you get a total of 32 cubic feet of storage space, and you can also expand that out, which Lucid says, I think 64 was the max when you fold down that seat. But again, it's not a very tall storage space, but it is a very wide and deep storage space. But just keep in mind, something like the Tesla Model S or the Audi S6 e-tron will offer that liftback practicality, but Lucid now offers the Gravity SUV for those of you who need even more practicality for space and people. So once you've moved past the exterior design of the latest Lucid Air, the interior is also going to impress you, especially if you've never actually been in a Lucid product. Before we get inside, however, I want to show you guys the key fob. As you can see, just like on some other EVs in this segment, the key itself is basically this plastic fob that has no actual buttons, and it kind of resembles the shape of a very aerodynamic car. It also comes with a key card. Most of the times, if you're an owner of this vehicle, you're actually not even going to use this. You're just going to use your smartphone as a key and use the Lucid Air or the Lucid app, which I sadly don't have access to because this is not my actual vehicle. Now, as you can see as well, the door handles, they are the electronic variation, which they retract and they also pop out, all for aerodynamics. The mirrors also fold in. You can see there's a camera here, a camera there, another camera over here. So there's lots of cameras around this vehicle, but what the car is missing, however, is any kind of like Sentry mode where you get like on a Tesla, or just like a built-in dash cam, which would have been nice. I think Lucid should quickly add that and just utilize the cameras that the car already comes with. Now you can see, just pull up on that door handle. It has an electronic actuator, so that pops open the door. And then looking at the interior of my test car, I would have preferred if Lucid had shown me a different interior color. They have basically like a brown or a light gray. This is the Mojave leather interior. This is technically the leatherette interior. It's a leather free material. You can get real leather on this car for an extra $3,000, but my test car doesn't have it. What I do have, however, are the $3,000 extra for the 20-way massaging front seat. So these front seats adjust in 20 different ways with memory function, of course, and you have heat, ventilation, and that massage function, which all adds to that luxury impression. The rest of this cabin, you can see with that floating 34-inch display, looks very futuristic and spaceshipy. And then in terms of the interior materials, you can see the upper door panel has like a soft touch injection molded area, although this feels more like leather covering the upper area. It just doesn't actually have any stitching. I like this material here, which is kind of like a recycled fabric material, and you also have this kind of dark wood trim. Window controls also feel pretty high quality. They are one touch, and they're also aluminum accented. This is the door handle. You pull that down to actually open the door, and down here you can see it's slightly hard touch, like rubberized material. You have some additional storage compartments there. And overall, that steering wheel I don't particularly love. It actually reminds me of a steering wheel from a Lincoln Town Car from like 2 decades ago, but overall the interior certainly makes a good first impression. I just would have gotten this with the brown interior as opposed to this black interior. Now getting inside, you can see it's got a very low step-in height because this is a sedan, obviously. As I get in and shut the door, the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk, and this model, because it has that comfort package, also includes a soft close feature, which is nice. You won't get that feature on a Tesla Model S, for example. Now looking at the rest of this cabin, you can see the infotainment system is dominated by the massive 34-inch curved OLED display, which technically is comprised of 3 different displays, along with a 12.5-inch portrait style display down here, which again is very interesting how they went with the portrait design. The new Lucid Gravity now has a 12.5-inch landscape style screen. The difference, of course, with this newer software that they just recently implemented is this car now has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which my phone's not connected here, but I'll put some B-roll in and you can see how it looks when it's connected via the CarPlay. It's not great because it's cut off basically at the top left part of the screen, although it kind of reminds me of the way the Cadillac Escalade was with its 38-inch display. It's nice how CarPlay is here. The last Lucid Air that I tested didn't even have CarPlay, but it would be nice if it took up the entire screen, and it's also still a little slow and laggy. You can see, coming back to the native system here, it has built-in embedded GPS, which works pretty well. The audio system still offers satellite radio, of course, along with Bluetooth, Spotify, Tidal, TuneIn, of course. Those are all a lot of the most used, software for radio or music streaming. It also has iHeartRadio. Your Bluetooth connectivity also is here. And then down here, you can still access a lot of controls. So if you want to go, look at your drive mode selector from smooth, swift into sprint, it also allows you to change your regen braking. It also shows you a nice little graphic of what they expect you to be doing when you switch it to the different drive modes. You can also adjust your steering wheel controls here. This is pretty similar to a Tesla, where I can basically make the steering wheel go up and down, and it's a power tilt telescoping, and I can basically save that to my profile. Same thing with the side view mirrors, of course. You can also make them fold in from there. The glove box, you push that opens up the glove box. You can see it goes into the dash. It's damped and lined with felt, which is nice. The seats, you can see you can adjust the seats in so many different ways, 20 different ways. You can also adjust the passenger from here, and you can also basically adjust it, save it to your profile. The massage function, as you can see, 5 different types of massages. It also even offers like a vibrating style massage, which you can sort of hear there. It's a nice massage, I have to say, and it also lasts for 20 minutes. You can also do 3 different intensities. The climate function, you can see it's got dual zone or quad zone climate control functionality. It's got your heated and cooled seats. The one thing I don't like, however, is the heat and cooled seats and steering wheel, heated steering wheel. They're all down here, which is a little bit of an annoyance when you're driving the vehicle. It requires you to take your eyes off the road and look down here. It really should be here, or at least give me a hard button to access the heated and cooled seats. That's something that I think Lucid could fix in a software update for the car. And then coming back to the car icon here, you can also adjust your different themes. This is the Solitude that I have it on. You can also change it to Inspire, Wonder, Space, Escape, and Serene. So this is pretty cool because it even changes the background of the upper screens as well, which is pretty cool. And then your charging here shows you whether you want to open up the charge port door, set a charge limit, precondition the battery. So that's all stuff that you kind of expect. You can also actually bring this screen up, down in here. So that's kind of cool how they offer that ability to kind of, you know, intertwine the screens. And if you want, you can actually flip this screen up, and it actually allows you to kind of bring the screen out, and you can see so many different, you know, storage options back there, which is pretty cool. Now, down here in the center console area, you can see it's got some aluminum trim here, which is really nice, along with this fabric door, which you can also open up. You can see there is cup holders here, along with your additional storage and your 2 USB charging ports and A and a C. There is a wireless phone charging pad here. There's one only for this side, not on the other side, but you can put a phone here. I found the wireless charging pad to be very unreliable. It didn't actually charge my phone unless I took it out of the case, which I found to be an annoyance. Newer wireless chargers allow you to actually charge it in the case. At least that's just what I noticed for myself in general. There's a little cubby here that pulls out. You can see that reveals a slightly deeper storage area for covered storage. So that's pretty nice. This is also padded. It feels pretty comfortable, and it's also well positioned. The seats are very comfortable and supportive for a fake leather. This feels very convincing, and like I mentioned earlier, the heat and cool function works well. You can adjust this bolster to squeeze you. You can also make the headrest move forward and back if you don't want the headrest to be too close up on your head or your neck, for example, and the cool function works well. So overall, the sound system as well in this car is the 20-speaker upgraded surround system, and it sounds really good. So if you guys are an audiophile, I highly recommend, you know, adding that option for it. When you put the vehicle into reverse, or when you put your foot on the brake, that's basically what starts the car up. There's no start-stop button, of course. And then the other thing I noticed with the Dream Drive Pro, if I signal left and right when the vehicle is in drive, for example, it'll show you exactly what's in your blind spot via those blind spot cameras. That's part of the Dream Drive Pro package. And then if I put the vehicle into reverse there, you can see there's your full 360 camera, which gives you a front or a rear view. It also can pull up a 360 view, which the 360 view is down here. It also has an auto parallel park feature. Again, those are all features that you pretty much expect to see. And you can also kind of do a 360 perimeter scroll around the vehicle itself, which gives you lots of different angles. You can see it's not the most intuitive, still is a little bit slow to respond at times, especially when you look at some of the competitive set, which has really impressive tech. So Lucid still needs to do something with the software in this car. It's still not the best for me. And then if you're looking for some of the other controls, wiper controls are over here on this stock. Your Dream Drive Pro controls are here on the steering wheel. No regenerative paddle shifters or anything like that. There's to turn your cruise control. This is to adjust the speed or the volume, and you can skip forward and back and use your voice commands here. This is to adjust your speed when you have the Dream Drive Pro on. And you can see your wiper controls are here. You have your headlight controls here, in addition to some additional controls here to open up the charge port door, open up the frunk. And you also have traditional air vents, which you can manipulate the air via just this toggle. I really appreciate that versus the electronic vents that you find in some of the competitors. So overall, the interior, for the most part, has premium materials, but there are a couple of fit and finish issues that I'm noticing. For example, there, when I stare over there, you can see that the fabric material there has a nice big gap and a gaping hole. So that doesn't look great when you're looking at a vehicle that costs, you know, 6 figures at this price point. And then you can see it's got an auto-dimming frameless style rearview mirror, but no digital camera mirror. And then without the glass roof option, it definitely eats into the airiness of this cabin, but it also gives you a little bit more headroom. And for those of you who don't want the glass roof, that could also be an option, and it saves you $4,000. So overall, the interior still is pretty nice. I also like the way it looks. It's very spaceshipy, and I appreciate how Lucid added CarPlay and Android Auto, but I do think that they should have probably switched this screen out to the landscape style, although the way the dash is oriented, that's kind of the way they designed it to do so. But let's go ahead and hop into that back seat area. I can show you guys what that space is like, and even though this is a mid-size sedan, it offers actually a generous amount of legroom. Lucid says up to 38 inches of legroom back here, along with a completely flat floor, which is nice. Material quality is the same high quality as the front seat, with leather here, soft leather up on this area here with more of that wood trim. You can also open and close these retractable peasant blockers, which for some reason, oh, there it goes. That's part of a $3,000 comfort and convenience package that also includes a shade on the other side and on the back. And you can also see these seats, they do fold down, although you can't fold them, I don't think, from back here. You actually have to fold them from in the trunk, I think. But let's go ahead and get back here. I can show you guys what that space is like. As you can see, shutting the door, the legroom back here is very nice. Actually, because this car has a slightly smaller battery pack, you get an extra inch worth of legroom because the battery pack is not as stacked or it's not double stacked. So Lucid was able to give you a little bit more legroom space up there, which is definitely nice. You have rear seat air vents. You have a screen back here that's part of the comfort and convenience package, along with 3-level heated seats. Again, I can open and close those shades back here, which, as you can see, when you extend the shade, that pops up to basically help block out additional light. And if you want, you can also close this shade here, and it really creates a nice, privacy effect in the backseat area, like an executive rear seat feeling. Open that up, you can see there's a nice little storage cubby there, which is great. You have cup holders and additional storage over here. And you can see that this armrest here, obviously it folds down manually, and you also have a nice little pass-through to get into the trunk area. These headrests are also very comfortable. I also find the seats to be comfortable with plenty of thigh support. And then in terms of the headroom space without the glass roof, you get a little bit more headroom clearance. So this is still a very nice back seat with plenty of room to stretch out and cross my legs. So if you plan to use this as a family car, I think you'll be pretty impressed with what Lucid has to offer here on the Air sedan. But just keep in mind, the gravity is what you're going to want if you want an extra 5 inches of legroom and the ability to carry up to 7 people. So here we are back behind the wheel of the latest version of the Lucid Air. It's crazy to think that it's been almost 3 years since I had a chance to spend a little bit of extra time with a Lucid. My first Lucid Air review aired basically 2.5 years ago. It was Grand Touring trim. Lucid was a lot more expensive back then, and this model that we're driving is the Touring grade. It has a smaller 92 kilowatt hour battery pack. We're starting off with almost a full charge here, and it was showing around 360 miles of range. It's a little bit less than the 396 in which the EPA rates this at. This model has 620 horsepower. So let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise. Lucid claims 3.4 seconds to get the best time. You put it into sprint mode, you brake torque it. It shows the bear. Oh, holy smokes! Wow, 3.14 seconds there. Considering the Grand Touring that I tested 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, offered 800 plus horsepower, this has the same. This has only 620 horsepower, but they do have the same 885 foot-pounds of torque. It's shocking to me how this car is a lot faster than what Lucid claims, because I got 3.05 seconds in that 800 plus horsepower Grand Touring edition. This model with 620 just did it in 3.14. So we'll see if we can do one more test up ahead and see if that makes a difference. I may do it without the launch control and see what the time is, because the launch control certainly gives you even more speed with this car. In fact, when you put your foot down, what I loved about the Air 2.5 years ago is just how smooth, responsive, instantaneous the power is. There is no delay whatsoever. What you just get is pure adrenaline. This car just surges forward with the kind of immediacy that you associate with an expensive luxury EV. It's also very smooth. This car rides incredibly well. I'm shocked at how smooth the ride quality is in this vehicle. I want to try one more run here. No launch control this time. We're just going to put our foot down. Holy smokes! 3.4 seconds there. Ooh. Now that is going slightly downhill, but I'm going to suspect that the launch control is capable of shaving a couple ticks off that 0 to 60 run. But still, this is unbelievably quick performance. Keep in mind, this is like the good, I'd say, middle offering for power, or maybe even slightly below that for Lucid. The base Pure version offers a new rear drive mode and a rear drive and an all-wheel drive Pure with a slightly smaller battery pack. This one has the 92 kilowatt hour battery pack, and this is plenty of performance for most people. I mean, this time should basically match the time that you'll find in like a base Tesla Model S dual motor. It also is quicker versus the last BMW i5 M60 that I've tested. It's also quicker than the last EQE that I tested, although I haven't had a chance to drive the EQE AMG. The last S6 e-tron that I tested also did it in the low to mid 3-second range. So there's a lot of competition in this space, but I have to say, for Lucid being a new car company, there's a lot to like about this vehicle. Now, this car does come with a one-pedal drive feature. You can switch it between, when you change the drive mode, you can switch it between off, standard, and high. The high mode, I find it to be a little bit too much. Standard is good, although one thing I want to mention with the way the throttle is tuned for this vehicle, I noticed that there are times where if you leave the regen in standard mode, if you're driving on the highway, the vehicle has a tendency to not give you a good calibration to kind of keep the vehicle in a moving forward in a smooth manner. Like anytime I put my foot onto the throttle, it would kind of add too much regen. I put my foot into the throttle, it would back off the regen too fast, and it would give me too much acceleration. So there needs to be a little bit of software calibration there, just so I can kind of push the pedal slightly to maintain forward progress without it being too, I guess, too jerky, which can kind of, annoy your passengers if they're not used to the EV experience, obviously. But let's try another 0 to 60 run here, still in sport mode, of course. Oh! Holy cow, 3.19 seconds there. So yeah, it shaves about 0.2 seconds off the 0 to 60 time, and this car takes your breath away. It is fast. It is absolutely fast, and I still very much appreciate the performance this car gives you. Now, in terms of the rest of the drive, the Lucid Air reminds you it's a luxury vehicle. First of all, I was sitting here getting a massage. They offer several different types of massages, including a vibration massage, which is kind of interesting, but it works well. It lasts for about 20 minutes, and you can turn it on, at the push of a button here from this screen. The visibility in this car isn't great, however. You can see the view out of the front is fine. The hood is nice and low. This A-pillar is very thick. The view out of the back is okay. Lucid does not offer a digital camera rearview mirror. My test car is also missing the glass roof option, which would add more light into this cabin. So sadly, it doesn't have that. The other thing I'm also noticing is this instrument panel display in front of me. It has that little needle that swings back and forth. Again, it shows how much power it's adding and then how much regen. I find that to be a little distracting, and again, it also highlights how it's difficult to be smooth with this car until you kind of get really used to it, so keep that in mind. I also don't love the ergonomics in this car because, for example, if I want to adjust the drive mode, I have to look down here on this little center screen, this 12.5-inch portrait-style display. If I want to adjust for example, my heated seat or climate control, I have to look down here, or the heated steering wheel, I have to look down here, and then the car's Dream Drive Pro yells at me to put my eyes back on the road, but then I'm looking down here because I'm trying to adjust some things there, so I find that to be annoying. That, again, is kind of an ergonomic issue. I wish Lucid had more hard buttons for those, use functions like the heated seats, the heated steering wheel, for example. The last Lucid Air that I drove didn't have wireless CarPlay. This, as you can see, does have wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, except sometimes the software just doesn't want to work. As you can see, trying to pull up the CarPlay, and of course it's not activating right now, which is super annoying. But other than that, I do find that screen to be a little on the small side. When the CarPlay is active, it's definitely too small, so I don't particularly love that. And the reason why the CarPlay is not on is because my phone is not connecting to it, which of course, I did find there were times where my phone refused to connect to this vehicle, and I find that to be quite irritating. Again, Lucid software still isn't quite up to Tesla's snuff there, so keep that in mind. In terms of real world range, let's go ahead and talk about that. This car is rated at 396 miles of range in the real world. In my actual testing, I was able to achieve 325-ish miles of range. So it's not bad. It's a little bit less than what the EPA says. On a full charge, this was showing around 385, but in reality, I was getting around 325 miles of range, so keep that in mind. The Grand Touring that I tested 2.5 years ago was able to do an extra 100 miles of range because, again, it had a bigger 113 kilowatt-hour battery pack. So the smaller battery pack is cheaper, it's lighter, but it's also going to give you about 100 miles less range in real-world driving. The build quality is pretty good. I didn't hear any squeaks and rattles, but there are a couple of misaligned trim pieces on the interior and on the exterior. Some of the pieces are a little bit too, there's too much of a gap between some of the body panels, which I don't love. But overall, Lucid has been around for a few years now, and there's still a lot of enticing features about this car. It's certainly very unique versus like a Tesla Model S. At the same time, it rides and handles like a luxury sedan. It has really sporty, quick, direct steering, which is quick and responsive. The suspension stays nice and flat, yet the ride on this car is so good. It's smooth, quiet, refined. You can easily take this vehicle on a long road trip, and it's got these really comfortable seats. The visibility isn't wonderful, but you can kind of get used to it relatively fast. Once you kind of, drive the vehicle around. And of course, Lucid's Dream Drive Pro, which my test car has, offers active lane change assist. When you turn on the adaptive cruise control, you can see it brings like a three-dimensional display of what's around you and what's in front of you. And it also shows you in the display here what's in your blind spot when you're turning left or right, which I will say that the quality of that screen isn't great. For example, if I show that, it shows you there. It's kind of like, it shows the wheel at a cantilevered angle at the back tire, which is kind of weird. But it worked well, aside from there are times where I was using the hands-free function of it, and I noticed that it was following the road really well and keeping me in the lane, but then when the road became a little imperfect and some of the lines disappeared, the system kind of freaked out and it started to steer toward the middle of the road, which that scared me. Again, these full self-driving or hands-free driving features aren't foolproof, but it does offer true hands-free driving, and that's essentially what you're paying $6,800 for extra for. And I will say that it worked well, aside from that little quibble that it gave me when it lost some of the lane markings, but I just don't know if it's worth the extra $7,000, which is cheaper versus the $10,000 that Lucid used to charge. So overall, I still like the way the Lucid Air drives. It accelerates quickly, it's smooth, it's quiet, it feels like a luxury car, and it also has pretty impressive looking tech. It's just the software behind it needs a little bit of work, but it really kind of shows you that you don't necessarily need to spend the extra $35,000 for the Grand Touring unless you must have the additional 100 miles of range. I personally would just stick with this Touring trim and add the glass roof option, but it really is a ton of value, especially since Lucid has significantly dropped the price of this vehicle over the last few years. So when I first had a chance to drive the Lucid Air back in 2023, it was one of the most impressive vehicles that I drove that year, let alone being one of the most impressive electric vehicles, especially if you didn't want a Tesla and you wanted something that could actually travel over 400 miles of range on a full charge. So after spending a full week with this far more affordable touring grade, as you guys saw, the acceleration really didn't take a hit versus the Grand Touring, which is a significant $35,000 more. We got 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds. That was very consistent, and it's a little bit quicker versus what Lucid claims. The real world range that we got for this model was also just over 320 miles of range, which is still very impressive. But again, you're paying the extra $35,000 for the Grand Touring, not necessarily for more power, which you get, but for 100 miles of additional range in real world driving. The styling of this vehicle still is kind of a love it or hate it. I do think that Lucid was far more successful in creating a very aerodynamic shape while making it look still sleek from certain angles. This is probably the worst angle for me when you look at the back and that huge gap between the body panel and that rear hatch that actually opens up. But the interior of this vehicle is still very upscale looking with a tech feature that looks very much like a spaceship. I just think Lucid still has some work to do on the software. I think Tesla does a better job still. Of course, they are the software king. I appreciate how Lucid added Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is something you cannot get in Tesla or Rivian vehicles, but the CarPlay implementation also should have been in the lower screen. But again, there's some ergonomic quibbles in here that make driving this vehicle a little bit of a pain, especially if you're not used to, having everything in the screen. I would like to see Lucid add more hard buttons for common options like the heated seats, the heated steering wheel, the massaging seats, as opposed to having to go through the touchscreen. The back seat is also very comfortable, offers plenty of space for adults. The trunk cargo capacity of this vehicle is also very usable, although I still kind of wish that Lucid made this a hatchback as opposed to a traditional sedan. And in general, when the Air first came out, this was a vehicle that was actually more expensive than the Model S, but Lucid has fixed that over the years because now you can get into a base Lucid Air for just over $70,000, which is a significant like $30,000 price decrease versus when this car first came out. And Lucid has been seeing their sales grow. The company sold just over 3,500 or just under 3,500 units in the US last year, which is not great if you look at it from some of its competitive set. A Model S outsold this vehicle 3-to-1, even though that vehicle sales have been decreasing ever so slightly. Lucid this year so far has sold around 4,500 units, which shows that they should be able to do, 6,000 units this year, which is a win for them. But I suspect a lot of people who are looking at Lucid are probably gravitating toward the Gravity, which I haven't had a chance to drive yet. I'm hoping I can get a hold of that vehicle at some point. Now, in terms of pricing, I mentioned $70,000 for the Pure. The Touring that I'm showing you here starts at $79,800, which is around $9,000 more. Seems worth it for the all-wheel drive, the extra power, the extra range, of course, some of the additional features that opens up when you get this vehicle, although some would argue that the Pure should have all the technology features that you could possibly want. The Grand Touring starts at $114,000. You get over 800 horsepower, up to 520 miles of range. I would probably skip that because you don't necessarily need to spend 35 grand extra just to have an extra 100 miles of range. Doesn't seem like a good deal to me. And then of course, at the top line, there's the Sapphire Edition, which is $250,000 with 1,200 horsepower. That one, I'm hoping I'll still be able to get a chance to review later for you guys because that'll hit 60 in under 2 seconds, but still 3.1 is certainly no slouch. And of course, my test car here with the options that it has, like the Stealth Appearance Package, the Comfort Package, the upgraded sound system, the Dream Drive Pro for extra $7,000, and this color upcharge and destination my test car here checks in at around $102,000, which $102,000 sounds like a lot of money. However, keep in mind a Tesla Model S, the base dual motor version, starts at around 95 grand. A Plaid starts at around $110,000. A comparable BMW i5 M60 is also around $100,000, but the BMW only goes around 230 miles of range on a full charge, so keep that in mind. So overall, I think Lucid has a very appealing product here, especially if you can find one for a great deal in terms of a lease. I think when I was on Lucid's website, I saw that they had $12,500 of cash on the hood, so you get that discount instantly, which makes this car around $86,000, which is also far more tempting. So in general, when this car first came out, it was expensive. Nowadays, Lucid has corrected that price problem, and I think the touring trim here that I'm showing you is probably going to be the sweet spot, but I would also skip the Dream Drive Pro and save myself about $7,000 because adaptive cruise is really all I would personally use. I don't necessarily need the hands-free driving unless you do lots of highway driving all the time on your daily commute. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2026 Lucid Air Touring. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.